Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. We're back on the Coxton sub, and this is an industry that I have been putting off for a matter of years. I'm happy to be here, though, to get you guys started on this one. I'm going to make a part 1 and a part 2 for this one because this is turning out to be quite the build. Before I officially introduce this industry to you, though, I do want to apologize in advance for my voice and any coughing that I might do. It's going to be quite a bit of coughing, and honestly, I don't know if it's worth editing out every single time that it happens. So just bear with me on that. I'm at least feeling a little bit better, but my voice is still struggling and my lungs are still congested, but we'll get there. So this industry is just to the north of Coxton, about a half a mile. It's on the main line. It's close enough to the port of Coxton to be considered a part of that area. But what this is going to be is something that I started a long time ago, and I even laid out tracks for, but then I more or less ignored it, which I don't regret because my original design sucked. But this is going to be the intermodal terminal. And it's not intermodal in the sense of, double stacks. In 1970-71, no one was running double stacks. They had just they had just started utilizing containers by this point, but they weren't the primary method of flat car trailer container shipments yet. They were getting there, and they would definitely grow fast and explode and obviously become the international norm that we have today, as well as a domestic, but they just weren't there yet. And so this is me making an intermodal port that fits the bill for more or less what you could call a transition era intermodal terminal. It would definitely be considered minor today. It's only got a berth big enough for one ship at a time. It can be a pretty big ship, but it's only got enough space for one at a time. It's at the confluence of, two major rivers, so plenty of water supply, but at the same time, it's upstream quite a bit from the coast, and therefore, by the time they started building the major ones on the coast, ones like this would have gone out of business if they hung around. It's just too far inland, honestly. But it is great for, you can imagine that proprietary shipping company that wants to test a new concept in an area that's not expensive. Port land on the coast, and a port is arguably some of the most expensive industrial land you can purchase. You want to buy land in LA to build an intermodal terminal, maybe try getting the state of California to give you the land, because you're not going to get it. But here, for example, we're in the middle of southeastern Arkansas, where the Arkansas and the Mississippi come together, and there's nothing here, so the land was cheap. So this is where we're setting up our first intermodal terminal, and the way it's going to work, there are some straddle cranes I'm going to throw in there to be able to load and unload 20-foot containers. In 1970 and 71, for the most part, they really were only shipping 20-foot containers. They haven't really gotten into widespread 40-footers yet. They were not double stacking. They were just putting them on like either single flat cars or like 85-foot flat cars, could carry 4 20-foot containers. So there's the opportunity for a little bit of container on flat car. It's mostly actually, in this case, for trailer on flat car. And so the straddle cranes can take the trailers right off. I'm using spine cars. So that's what I'll include in the route is spine cars. It's not going to be like the good old Santa Fe or, Pincy, B&O, trailer terminals where they would drive the trucks across like 50 flat cars before they would, tie it down, and they would just keep doing that. That is not what this is. We're past those days. This is when they're lifting whatever the length of the trailer is. I guess in this time it would have been anywhere from 28 to 35 or 40-foot trailers. In the game, of course, there's not as many of those, so I ran with 53-footers, don't judge. But this is when the cranes lift them up and set them right down on the spine car, and then pick them right back up off the spine car. But once you set it down, it's hooked up to the tractor, and off it goes. But yeah, the ships that come in can definitely take and receive, saying that with air quotes, containers. I've got the skids over there for loading and unloading cars. off of auto racks. So honestly, this would be a place where we unload the cars for export. Not necessarily just export, but I do have an offloading facility over in Coxton itself. That's more for, any dealerships there in the area. So I guess really we would argue that this is, offloading cars for export. But if you want to bring in your intermodal trains, this gives you the option to run unit trains of just containers, unit trains of TOFC, trailers on flat car, or also, unit trains of auto racks. And of course, we're using the open auto racks, not the covered ones. This is before the 1980s, so, auto racks were open back then. And then the other thing, back then, and even still today, sometimes if you'll go out and look, you'll notice a lot of intermodal trains aren't even the same kind of, not material, same kind of packaging. That's the wrong word. They're not just containers. They're not just trailers. They're not just auto racks. All right, it's a mix of any sort of intermodal-ish express type freight. So now we're going to actually start getting the berth ready. I'm going to call it a berth, although that's also probably the wrong word. I'm not too uppity on my port terminology. But the dock here, I went ahead and grabbed a placeholder for the ship. I don't know if I'm going to keep that exact ship. We're going to set it up for now and keep it, but I might replace it later with a different asset. And then here I'm just making the little extension of the land, that the breakwater that just helps, keep some of the river current out of the dock a bit. Now, naturally, of course, that's not very high. So if the Arkansas here ever floods its banks, it's definitely going to flood over that breakwater. But, I don't really have a prototype in this location to build off of, so I decided I'm not going to worry about that. If it bothers you, then when you get the route, just go into the editor and raise it, and everything's fine. But yeah, I might replace that ship later. We'll see. For now, I'll keep it as a placeholder. But I love those cranes. They're off the download station. I'm definitely going to keep those cranes. They're well done. They didn't take too long to download, so that was nice. But yeah, we're going to get all this put together. We're definitely going to have a part 2 because I'm going to need part 2 in order to get a lot of the finer details done. But here we're putting together the quay wall. Honestly, I'm not going to go for like the super fine details of like ladders and guardrails and all that stuff, at least not in the videos. Those are the kind of details like you add to your route over time. And you just, keep giving some updates with some prettier stuff. You guys know by now that I like to make stuff that looks good, but I'm really mostly focused on good operations and impressionism. So, I don't get all in a tiffy, and I don't feel bad when I see other people really super detailed stuff, knowing that I could do that, but it would increase the time that it takes to build this by 2 or 3 times over. And I'm just not interested in that. I want to get something that is really good, but not perfect, but able to be released and enjoyed. And, if you're looking at people's screenshots and you're looking for those really fine, minute details, hats off to you. I don't. When I look at people's really awesome screenshots, I just like to look at the trains because that's why I have the game. But yeah, it's all good. No judgment. We all have the things we're interested in. Whew, just going to do 6 cranes. Obviously, I know that they're not all standing right over the same ship. That's because, once again, you can see that the berth or the dock there is big enough to take a considerably larger ship. That's kind of done on purpose. I'm sure there are some other ships out there. There's even a couple others on the download station that looked all right. But yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of other ship assets you can find in different places that could be used to replace that. And then here, I'm only doing it on one track for now, but I'm going to lay in these JR crossings, these crossing guardrails through the middle of all the tracks. Just obviously, that way when the train's not on those tracks, trucks and the cranes can just drive right over them, and it's no big deal. So line them up with some yellow lines for caution. I'm going to add in a few more road marker details. I'm going to do that in the next video because I want to do a little bit of research on kind of typically what that looks like. I'm not going to model it after any specific prototype, but I am going to take some inspiration from some prototypes just to try to get a reasonable feel for what I should go for, It would be different if I was doing like approach medium and, building like the Port of LA. That would be very different. Or the Port of Long Beach, whichever one it was. I think it was Port of Long Beach actually that he was making. But yeah, I mean, that would be very different. I would be modeling something literally to the prototype. Here, I'm just using prototypes as inspiration. So I'll do some research on what that all should look like and get some adjustments made. Don't sweat the textures if you're looking at that going, oh my God, that's so lame and boring and uniform. Yeah, that's all about the change. And then there, I got the bright idea. I thought this was brilliant, and it's probably wrong, and I don't care. I got the bright idea to straddle the cranes between the tracks, and I was like, wow, I gave myself just enough space to do that. And it felt like a boss moment because I finally, coincidentally benefited from something that I didn't intend. It was hilarious. But here I want to work on the breakwater a bit. So we're going to get some textures along the riverside finished because, the gray area dates the route. The route's been in existence for like 3 or 4 years at this point. I think 4 years. The very first version of this, was started in Tain. That's crazy. And in fact, the tracks at the start of this video that I deleted were first laid in Tain like 4 years ago. That's wild. I did, of course, replace the track asset. But yeah, it's just crazy to think that that was literally a track arrangement I built almost 5 years ago. So here I just want to lay in a bunch of rocks. I only used rocks that are not payware or packaged, sticking with my convention for route building and for ease of access to assets. So that was the goal here. That does mean sometimes that I can't make things as beautiful as others who use custom asset packs or special asset packs from major websites that don't like to share those with anyone else, which is understandable. But it's a compromise. It's a compromise. I still think that under the conditions of what I have available, I think it does exactly what it's supposed to do. And then I decided to get silly here, so don't judge. But I don't have a lighthouse asset, and I don't want a lighthouse asset, but I did want some kind of light here. So I tried out all these different little city lights, just being ridiculous, until I found one, and I settled for the floodlight. So hopefully I faced the right direction, but the goal was to make it shine out away from the dock in order to bring attention to ships coming either direction. So don't judge if you think the floodlight is a dumb idea. If you don't like it, then when you get the route, just remove it. No big deal. You're not hurting my feelings. All right, we're finally getting to the textures. Keep in mind, I'm not using HD terrain, so I'm not limited to 8 per baseboard, which is honestly good because I'm just not ready for that yet. I mean, I'll get there, but I'm not there yet. So we're going to rough this up and dirty it up a bit, get some variance in there. And then I also wanted to add the dirt around the track, especially where the track wasn't sunk in. And then, get some other dirt textures that aren't just the same so that it still, of course, has some good old variance. Mix it all up in there, make it look a little beat up. But yeah, the goal on this is, it's got the capacity. If you want to run a 6,000 foot train, there will be, one control point on the route where you can have 2 6,000 foot trains pass each other just because it's a secondary and that's not the main traffic, but you can if you want to now. I'll put that update in another video sometime, but this will have the capacity for that. You'll be able to terminate a 6,000 foot train here and still have probably another 3,500 feet or so left over, and that's not counting the space for the auto racks. That's pretty much just the space for the containers and the TOFC. It's almost 6,000 feet right there. If you count the auto rack tracks, of course, you've got a whole nother 6,000 feet of space. But so there's a lot of track space here. I guess that's almost 15,000-ish feet of track space for terminating and building trains. But I'm really excited for this industry. I definitely look forward to running some trains out of it and to it from staging. Of course, it's only accessible from the north, so keep that in mind. The SP comes from the southwest, the LNN comes from the southwest, but you've got KCS and SP coming from the north that you can run trains to this point from, or to if you'd like to, sorry. To is the word of the day. Whew, my voice is killing me. Well, we are almost done with the video portion. I really hope you guys have enjoyed part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 where we get to some of the other details around the yard. But I'm very excited for this industry. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. And I've got some cinematics, and we will catch you guys out there next time as soon as we get these last few details done. All right, guys, take care.